listening to the PR Wind Down podcast, the show for public relations professionals who are ready to see real change in the PR industry. We are your hosts, April White and Laura Schooler. Let's get ready to wind down.
Ready?
Yep.
This week, we're celebrating something special.
Trust Relations, it's 2 years old. So we're going to be sharing some stories from the team and also reflecting on the journey we've taken so far. And we want to thank you in advance for celebrating with us.
So our guest this week is, drumroll, April. The co-host of the PR Wind Down. She's the guest this week. That's exciting. So I'm putting her on the hot seat to discuss what the last 2 years have been like, how her agency, Trust Relations, has grown, and other burning questions. Also joining us are two of April's longtime colleagues, Sara Blood, the Senior VP at Trust Relations, and Maggie O'Brien, our Senior Copywriter.
So psyched to have them. They're also long-term friends, so friends and colleagues. Maggie and Sara and I go all the way back to the very beginning of my PR career, essentially. Almost to the very beginning. But I knew Maggie before my first agency job because we worked together at the Des Moines Register newspaper.
And in fact, if I interject, I was thinking about this. I knew you even before because I was a couple years ahead of you in college. I had just started as a staff member. So that's even further back.
That's right. You knew me when I was a stringer when I was in college, when I was probably 18.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, wow. So yeah, Maggie's seen a lot of versions of April Goodwin, then April White, and now April Margulies. So what happens now? You guys are going to ask me hard questions?
Okay, so April.
Yes.
I feel like this is your life. Are you ready?
I don't know. I'm a little bit nervous.
You might have to do a little soul searching here, but you seem to be good at that. So this sort of a broad question. Tell us your best day ever at Trust Relations.
Oh, honestly, it was recent.
Besides the day that you met me.
Yes, of course. After that, of course. Honestly, it was recently because we had an all-staff meeting. At the end, we invited everyone to say something about their experience at Trust Relations. We didn't give them any warning this was happening. And it was really touching because all of the things that I had in my head when I started the agency that I hoped it would become were things coming out of people's mouth. Honestly, it was like everything I could do to not cry off my makeup. It was remarkable, especially after it's really weird to spend 2 years where you just have your head down and you're working crazy long days and you don't look up to see that you've gotten to the top of the mountain or that you've climbed as far as you have or that things have gotten as big as they have. For me, it was that moment because it was like, wait, 2 years ago, this was a concept. And now there are all these people that are not only seeing the concept, but have gratitude for it. And all of those late nights and all of those moments that makes it worth it. It was definitely my favorite moment.
What's an example though, April? Give an example of something that was in your head that you saw manifested in that meeting. Sorry, Laura.
No, it's a really good question. So one of the things was that I really wanted it to be this family feel of people being really collaborative and everybody being really kind to each other, and that it would be in no way toxic, very respectful environment where people felt appreciated. And so, even to hear Veronica say, yeah, I couldn't believe I was an account coordinator and she was interviewing me for an AE position and asking me what I like to do. Nobody ever does that, and so it's like, it's cool to just feel like I wasn't doing that on purpose, right? I wasn't doing that for optics or show. I legitimately wanted that to be the case, that people were really happy in the roles that they were in. And that was one of the pieces that was really touching to me, just people feeling at home in a way that I wanted the agency to feel like. I really wanted it to have this safe environment where people could be themselves and diversity could flourish as a result. And I don't even just mean the traditional diversity. I mean diversity in terms of people's personalities and their backgrounds and their viewpoint on life and their history, like all of these different things, right? Because it is all of these things. It's perspective. It's where you grew up. So and you look on our screen with all the Zoom people on Zoom, and it is really diverse. We're all very different people, but yet we function as one big family unit. And that to me is a dream come true.
What was your worst day? Are you willing to admit at Trust Relations so far?
But there was kind of a worst period. Maybe there was a day within that. Probably there is. We had lost a client, and I had gotten a little bit aggressive and scrappy about being accepting of clients that otherwise probably wouldn't have been something I would have taken on. And we had one that was kind of fire festival-y, and it had a weird vibe to it, but I took it on anyway. And we had another one that was like, a partnership with another agency that had some kind of shady characters. So I took it because I had my first full-time employee and I had to pay her salary, and I was panicking about that. And not only did they end up being terrible clients who were in fact shady, but in addition to that, I had to go to court because they didn't pay. So I had to sue both of them.
On giving, right?
They cost me money because I had to then file lawsuits and go fly out and appear in court and spend the money to do that. And I mean, it was like, yeah, to your point, like the gift that keeps on giving, and just like, I can't believe that it came to this.
So those are the aspects of like having your own business that you don't even really think about.
No, in a weird way, it was actually a very, all things considered, inexpensive gift and lesson to me. So I treat it now in my head like it was paying college tuition for being a business owner and getting a semester of training. Our contracts have changed as a result, but like, I wouldn't take on clients that are that sketchy because I'm hopeful. And I never, ever, ever do business without some really strict contract in place. It doesn't matter how much I like the person, how much I relate to them, how many people we have in common, if I've worked with them before, it doesn't matter. There's a contract.
When you say this, I think as freelancers, we all kind of hit some painful lessons. I really relate to the loosey-goosey contract sort of thing. And I know over the years when I freelanced, there were times that I thought, boy, sometimes it just sounds nice to just go back into some clock in, clock out kind of job and just give it up and just have it be easy. Was there ever a time during the height of that stress that you were like, oh, maybe I don't want to do this? Or did that ever enter your mind?
Honestly, I hate to admit it, but yes, I did have a moment where I let the stress of it get to me so badly that I thought I was so stressed about the finances of a company. So it's like, imagine you're a freelancer and you're stressed financially for yourself. I had responsibilities to all of these other people. Right. Wow. And I was sitting there thinking like, I'm making less now than I would if I went and got myself a full-time job. Mm-hmm. And nobody seems to know that, right? Like my junior people think that I'm like rich and sitting on a high hill and thinking to myself, what the hell am I doing? Like, why did I decide to do this? This is crazy. You just don't know. And it's funny. I had advice from actually one of our current clients, and he said to me, one piece of advice I have for you is that people are reliable until they're not. And this is the business you're getting into. So you're going to be in a business where you can rely on people until you can't. And then that's the issue you fix. And on top of that, the thing that you love doing, I just want to warn you, you're not going to be doing that anymore. And he was right? I am doing PR, but I'm not doing PR even remotely in the way that I was doing PR before. I'm running a business. And I'm overseeing people that are doing the work that I used to do. And there are definitely moments where you're like, I miss writing a byline, or like, oh, I miss working on a press release. And every once in a while, for that reason, I still jump in.
Right.
Every once in a while, I still pitch a reporter because I really want to, but it's like, it's not a reasonable thing for me to be doing.
Right. Running the business is taking away from doing the business, right?
That's right.
Here's something that I have run into is the more experience and the more senior you get, if you're working at a company or if you're trying to run your own company, like I just said, the further from actually doing the work you get. But then when you maybe lose that job for some reason, or decide to disband your company for some reason, whenever you talk to somebody about then working for them, they're like, have you been doing this? And it's like, I was running teams. So it's really hard to pull yourself out of it at a senior level. Mm-hmm. So you might have to own this company forever, whether or not you want to.
Well, I would like to own it forever.
Well, there you go. So we've discussed at length that there were a lot of industry issues at play that inspired you to leave the big agency scene in New York and strike out as a freelancer? That's what you did initially, right? What is the experience that sticks out to you as the moment you realized you wanted to carve your own path?
So I was brought in, and I'm not even going to give a location so that I don't out this agency, where they really needed somebody at a senior account supervisor level. I was well past that in terms of my years of experience, but I was like, oh, fine. I know somebody that works there and it'll be fine. The salary's not what I want, but I'm sure I can prove myself and I can get there. So I came in and discovered that every account they gave me was about to walk out the door, and I had to go save them all. So I went from account to account to account to fix it and save it and save it and save it, in large part because of the turnover. So there had been like new account people every 3 months, whether it was senior or junior level, and there was no strategy in place. I didn't even know what we were supposed to do for these clients. I was just handed clients and like, go get them press, as though I knew
anything about
anything. And I was like flying from Hawaii to Tahoe to all over the place to meet these clients and save them. And I was trying to, at the same time, sort of calm down the internal team that was angry, right? The junior people that felt put upon, because they were. Yeah. And I couldn't lie to them and say they weren't. So I couldn't play this party line. There was a culture at the agency where they wanted you to dress alike and look alike and talk alike and sound alike. It was very fake. So like if you fit in with the clique, then you were promoted and part of the senior team. And so there was a moment where I had saved a bunch of accounts. I was bringing in new accounts for them. I was doing all of this like new business that wasn't even my business to do. And the feedback that I got, because I didn't fit in to the clique, because I didn't play the game, because I wasn't going to, I wasn't going to, because I wore pantyhose, just kidding. But like, it was one of these situations where I realized, because I was authentic, that I was never going to be treated with respect by this agency, because they wanted people who were going to be fake and play along with their game and pretend things were fine when they weren't, and just fit into this masquerade. And I wasn't going to do it. They ended up promoting a girl that was like 10 years my junior in terms of experience, above me, to be the VP that was like leading this group, when it was clearly me who was the person that should have been leading the group, because I was overseeing, millions of dollars of revenue and like saving the day and bringing in clients, like fixing things left and right. And instead of ever being grateful, they just kept giving me more and more and more. And then finally they said, well, we need to see what you're pitching. We need to see you get more media hits. Like, in what universe, if I'm doing the job of an SVP and I'm being paid for the job of a supervisor,
right,
I'm doing so much more. Yeah, they sent one of those emails that's like, we need you to show this and this and this and this.
Right.
And I was like, I quit.
Good for you.
I quit on the spot, and I just decided that was it. And I also decided I've been thinking about starting my own agency for years.
Right.
And this is not worth it ever to anybody. None of these people, there were very nice people who worked there, and none of them should have been working there. They shouldn't have been treated that way. They shouldn't have had to take that job. They shouldn't, I was just like, I want to rescue all of them, right? So there was a moment where I just felt like, I want all of you to come work for me and I'll be nice to you, right? And that was kind of like it was sort of the seed where I got, so a little bit of it was a negative motivation, but it was also positive, right? It was kind of
Did you leave like playing a flute and everybody followed you out of town? Or was it like Jerry Maguire where you went and you got the fish?
I wish I could say that, but no, I didn't have enough clients to really start a company at that point. But I was determined at that moment that enough was enough, and that someday I was going to go back and I was going to buy that agency, and I was going to rescue all of the people that were.
Okay, so that was what made you decide that I don't want to live my life like this, and I don't like to see other people having to live like this. So I'm going to do it the right way, my way, and hopefully I can save other people from this sort of misery, which we know runs rampant in agency.
And in a way, I had the confidence, because I was like, wait a second, I'm already going out and getting new business for another agency. I can do this, right?
Yeah.
you know, so I wasn't sure I could do it, but there was a part of me that was like, I think I can.
So since then, how has the agency grown and changed since you first hired your own freelancer?
Good question. I mean, it's pretty much night and day in a lot of ways, but it's also the nucleus of the thing is still fully intact, which makes me really happy and I hope continues. So it feels like a lot is the same, but a lot has changed because we have gotten more professional and buttoned up, and we have systems and processes and people in place and a social media strategy and all kinds of like templates that we're using to do consistent work, and meetings where we're getting together and making sure that things are clicking the way they should be. And I have Alana. I have somebody's like
Alana. Not Alana. Alana.
Yes.
Not llama.
No, not. I would like a llama.
Although you might. I wouldn't be surprised if you also had llamas.
I did look into getting alpacas, but it turns out they're a lot of work.
Yeah.
Maybe someday.
I was laughing at your story about rescuing the agency. I'm like, where are you going to put these people, April? Because I already send a Christmas card every year to April and the animal menagerie because I can't keep up with how many animals you have. It reminds me of the heart you have, April.
I'm a rescuer of creatures, big and small, and animal and human and animal.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So what about your professional identity? You were a journalist, but what are the parts of your job and career that make you feel the most passionate?
I knew when I was in junior high that I wanted to be a writer. That was a passion point for me. I wanted to go to the University of Iowa and study creative writing. My parents convinced me to stay at Iowa State and study journalism because they said it was a more practical way of making sure that I would earn a salary as a writer and then I could write on the side. My parents were worried if I went to University of Iowa, I'd cut off all my hair and dye it black. And
you did that anyway, though, right?
I know, I did. So it didn't stop. It just delayed the inevitable.
As she drinks her faux wine. So wait, Maggie and Sara, what did you want to be when you were in junior high or high school? Did you have any thought? I doubt it was, I want to be a PR person. That's why I'm asking.
Go ahead, Sara.
Growing up, I wanted to be a waitress. I thought
really?
And Alice was the coolest thing, and the whole kiss my grits, I just thought that was fantastic. She could get away with everything, It was not until age 15, 16, Desert Storm happened. I lived in a really, really tiny rural community at that point, and I was blown away by the media coverage. So that's when I decided I wanted to be a reporter. I really thought I was going to go become a war correspondent.
Wow.
But that really changed when I met my husband when I was 17. So I was really living by the line of Alice Hoffman's, which was a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle, and she was trying to throw her arms around the world. But it's amazing how your life changes and shifts. And Maggie, I know you've had some shifts along the way too.
Oh boy. Growing up for me, I always liked to write, but I never had a conscious goal or thought in mind that I wanted to be a writer. I remember in high school being very idealistic and wanting to somehow make a difference, but I couldn't wrap my head around how. I went to Iowa State simply because the majority of my high school graduating class, those that went to college, went to Iowa. And so I decided I wanted something different. So at Iowa State, when you had to declare a major, I was thinking about English literature. And similar to, my parents were like, well, what you going to do with that? And are you going to go to law school? Are you going to teach?
Sounds like my mother.
Yeah. And the practical Iowans,
Yep.
Like live your dream, but you've got student loans.
Yeah.
So they actually suggested journalism because it actually would be a paying job, because I liked the high school paper. So I went into that, and kind of the rest, as they say, is history. After a number of years being in news, I went into PR. Just to interject, and I met Sara at my first PR job. Yeah. And then I brought April on to work in the New York office, and then we all started working together. It's just crazy. The worlds have collided. It's just so crazy.
I kind of laughed that Maggie and April and another friend of ours that worked with us, Erin Matthey, were all kind of like the Charlie's Angels of our agency, because we all had different colored hair for one. So that's the most important part. But two, we were all like toiling in the news industry in various ways, but they wanted former journalists to take over media relations. They found that the account managers didn't have time to put into media relations. And so media relations would slide further and further down the priority list. And so it's kind of...
Yeah, we were like the hired hitmen for media relations.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So April.
Yes.
What do you do when being boss lady becomes too stressful? Like, what does your free time look like? And how do you keep a balance?
That's a funny question. So one of the things that saves me is that I live in the wilderness and I can just go out and do whatever I want outside without anyone seeing me. So that might be hot tubbing late at night. Sometimes I get done at midnight and I go out for a quick like dip in the hot tub.
You have a hot tub?
Yeah, and I go out and look at the stars. I spend a lot of time with my animals, so that could, sometimes that's walking them, sometimes it's just like talking to them or, you know, having goofy interactions with them or watching them have goofy interactions with each other, which is always entertaining. Every once in a while, like a goat and a dog fight, you have to break up or something. And then I love to sing. We used to do a lot of karaoke to blow off steam. I can't do that now, but I'm hoping to soon.
What's your favorite karaoke jam? Do you have one? What's your best? What do you think is, you know, you feel like you're out there like Donna Summer or whatever?
That's a hilarious question. You know this song where it's like, Watusi and fly. It's an old song. Twisting the night away.
Oh,
Twisting. Everybody's feeling great. I love that one. I get up there and I just like.
Oh, I don't do karaoke. Never in my life. And I never will.
Laura claims she never sings, but she sings on every podcast now.
Right. But I do have, if I was a stripper, I have a song.
oh, what's that?
But I don't have a karaoke song.
Okay, wait. Pray tell.
Okay, so if I was a stripper on the pole, my song definitely would be Rusty Cage by Soundgarden.
Nice. Yep.
Funny you mentioned Donna Summer because my karaoke song and possibly my stripper song would be Hot Stuff by Donna Summer.
We'll see.
And I have if I ever became a professional baseball player, walk-up music. So that's... Yeah, it'd be She's Long Gone by the Black Keys. I thought that would be the most badass.
That's your walk-up song?
That would be my walk-up song.
Those are interesting answers. I mean, aside from hiking, which I've heard is walking on dirt, I really like...
And I do also write music and produce music and some other more complicated hobby things. But that's
a lot.
I don't always do all of it as much as I'd like to. I'm working towards carving out more time to do some of the music production and writing because it's something that I find actually makes me a better professional in a way because it helps me feel that creative side of myself that I think then when that cup is full, then I can bring that to the company. I'm working with Art Garfunkel Jr.'s song.
Oh, wow.
And I wrote a song for him that's inspired by his favorite Simon and Garfunkel song, which is April Come She Will.
I don't know it by a title. I probably would know if I heard it, though.
April Come She Will.
Oh, totally. No, that was good.
Yeah.
I totally, my mom was like, loved Simon and Garfunkel.
The song is phenomenal. I mean, not to toot my own horn, it's mostly phenomenal because the inspiration for it is phenomenal and because Arthur's voice is ridiculous. Like there's nobody in the world that can sing like that. So if you have those two elements, I mean, you kind of can't go wrong.
Right. But you've skipped a whole step. What about the PR that has to happen to release this song?
We will need help with that. It's funny. There was a long time where I hoped that the music was going to take over and I would not have to do PR anymore. And I would just like, now I do music. It was a little bit of a negative push and pull. I think that was happening. I didn't know I was doing that. It took me until like last weekend to figure that out. But I do a lot of soul searching to Laura's point. So it's like, okay, you know, it is possible to do both and be happy doing both. And the truth is like partly why that day I told you about everybody getting the feedback of like, thank you for building this thing. And I know you put in a lot of long hours, which is something that Kayla said, like, And she recognized and was grateful for the fact that I built something that people were part of and benefiting from and enjoying that it existed. And so there was a moment where I was like, oh, I don't ever want to let go of that either.
What have you learned from your team?
What have I learned from my team? I'm constantly learning from everyone about all kinds of different things. And that's just on the PR side. Then you have the people on behind the scenes, you know, that are doing the back office stuff, and you've got all the finance people, and you're just like, oh my God, I never even like, it's just a constant learning for me. So saying one thing seems impossible. The biggest challenge for me at the beginning, I had a really difficult time letting go of the reins. And it wasn't because I was a control freak. It was the opposite. I identify with being a workhorse. So I identify professionally even as being the person that can work with any impossible client, any impossible personality, and deliver, and just do the hard work and roll up my sleeves and get it done. And so I was really uncomfortable assigning work to people, right? But then you realize, okay, well, but I didn't mind getting work from people and helping them, right? I enjoyed that. I enjoy that too. And it's not that I'm, in a weird way, they always say like the person that doesn't want to be a boss is probably the best boss that should be a boss.
Right.
And the person that wants to be a boss probably should never be a boss.
Right.
And I feel like I'm definitely the person who never wanted to be a boss.
Right.
So it's like, oh God, I feel weird. Like, can you do this for me? I feel like a princess, you know?
So April, you've
Yes.
got 2 years under your belt. What's
Yep.
your hopes, your dreams for the next 2 years? Like where do you hope to be in 2023?
That's a really good question. I feel like we have entered the mid-size level agency world, and we're starting to be competitive in that space. I would hope in 2 years that we're very well established as a mid-size agency that people are starting to flock to and know, and starting to swing some elbows and like fight for clients with the really big agencies. Like that would be my dream. I know it's ambitious because that's 2 years away, but here we are already, you know, and so I feel like it's doable because I think things seem to multiply exponentially. It's not addition, it's multiplication. And I think it's possible from here to multiply everything to the point of it being that big. My ambitions for being big are not because I want to be rich and famous and like Richard Edelman. That's not it. I want to give everybody in PR that wants a nice place to work and a good job a place to land. And also on the flip side of that, I keep talking to prospects who have been burnt by PR agencies over and over and over. I just talked to somebody 2 hours ago, that said she'll never work with a big agency again because she got so burned and she knows that it's bad service. And she's just like, no. I want to be that something different for clients as well.
So you talked a little bit about how the clients have been burned by PR, but what are clients looking for when they find trust relations?
They keep looking for a way for PR to be a sure bet or a safer investment. And I have to tell them it's always a gamble. PR is a gamble. It's an art form within marketing that's a gamble if you do it right. Yes, there are people in PR that are doing kind of slimy things behind the scenes where they're contributors to tier F publications and they just post the articles themselves and call it a media hit and give you a money back guarantee, right? This is happening. As a former journalist, especially, I find it to be something that's just odious because it's bastardizing media to the extent that you're not even remotely respecting it. I think as an industry, we're up against something because that's going to continue to happen. If it's working for this one company or 2 or 3 companies, I don't even know how many are doing this now. There are going to be more that do it. And we're not going to be one of them. We might actually have to rebrand at a point because I'd prefer trust relations to be the new term for public relations to replace it so that you know if people are doing trust relations that they're doing like our version of above the board, the right way PR. And if they're saying PR is still that they're not, I don't know how to pull that off, right?
That's interesting.
But that was sort of the impetus even that started the name of the company.
How do you respond then when 5 or 7 years ago, so many agencies were saying PR as a standalone entity is dead, that we now have to do this breaking down of silos and bringing all of the marketing disciplines together?
I think it's very important that they play well together and that people in PR understand the other aspects and facets, because they do interface and they can amplify each other. But they're still separate disciplines, and they always will be. I wouldn't be against trust becoming a branding, advertising, digital marketing, social media, SEO, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I don't see any reason we can't expand out into those areas. But even if we did that, I wouldn't make them all big one goulash, right? I mean, a lot of people in marketing have tried to do PR and then they realize that it's hard. I think the need for PR, even if there's a moment where the media shifts and changes, that there's going to be a need for PR in a different way, because messaging and knowing how to frame things and knowing how to word things in a politically sensitive way is not going to go away.
Yeah.
Even if the media went away tomorrow, that skill set is very specific and is not going to go anywhere. Marketing people can't replace this in that way and just say, oh, now we just tell everybody what to think about our brand with this colorful, flowery language and everyone will believe it. Like, that's the need to be able to communicate in a way that conveys all the proof points of something and shows value in a direct and concise way is not going to go away. And that's an art form that's going to live on forever. So my main concern in the industry at the moment is the credibility of the media. PR is first and foremost something that people use in the marketing mix to build credibility, because it gets the third party endorsement of the media. That will change if the media no longer has credibility, because we won't be able to provide credibility building for brands or companies.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm very bullish on this idea of supporting the media in its quest to retain its objectivity and support media outlets that do that and don't fall into the trap of falling one side of the political aisle or another and basically becoming a propaganda puppet. Because then not only do we lose the media, which is probably our biggest asset as a society, because otherwise we're just going to become peons to whoever is owning the news, running the companies, owning the companies. We have no valid information from which to make decisions. We have no power. We have no decision-making abilities, right, as a society. So PR aside, that's a whole other concern that's specific to us and is important, but it is of utmost importance that we respect the news. And that's why PR firms that are doing this gross thing behind the scenes and manipulating the media for this are actually feeding into the death of a free society.
Yep.
So it is very bad business.
Well, that's what made PR always stand out. When I first went into the industry, they said, well, a story is so much more memorable than an ad, you know? Yep. And I think right now the PR industry as a whole, at least in the last 20 years I've been involved, I still think we struggle as to how we show value. You know, PR has to play nice with those marketing, other marketing disciplines. Like, I like to use the example of geese flying or ducks flying, and sometimes PR has to lead. But the nice thing about ducks is they change who's leading the pack so that those other ducks that are tired can get wind off of that. So when that client approached me, I said, well, are you promoting the placements on social media? Are you sharing them in your newsletter? Are you giving people discounts? Are you using UTMs to do? And this is all stuff that I'm not supposed to know about because I'm a PR person, you know? And so I struggle with that too. But yeah, I hear you loud and clear about the credibility of journalists and how much, I mean, a free press is critical to democracy. I mean, we've talked about this before, you know, the fact that there's more people pitching, you know, look at Cision. They have to limit how many people you can export at a time because too many people in our industry are spamming reporters. So yeah, I think we've got a long ways to go in building that trust. So I've always liked the name trust relations for that very reason. So
wait, I have a final question for you.
Okay.
Who's your favorite? No. Why purple?
Why purple? In terms of the branding, purple's been my favorite color since I was in kindergarten. And there's a picture of me going to my first day of school. I'm wearing a purple backpack, a purple shirt, purple shorts, purple socks, and purple shoes. Like everything is like all purple. So I love purple. And I did this brand survey. It came up as magician. I thought I like that, because I do sort of think of myself and of the agency as being, especially because in PR, you're kind of a magician. Most of PR is magic. It is, because it's like, it's not a science and there's no way to pin it down and there's no way to know exactly how it works. It's like, you throw this thing out and it sticks and it blossoms and you go, oh my God. Like, and not that you're surprised per se, but there's still an element of feeling like you shock yourself each time, right? When these big hits come out of the wall and you did all the hard work, but suddenly, poof, the thing appears before your eyes. So really what PR is putting out an idea about a brand or company or person to perpetuate it in the universe. So you're kind of going, okay, this person wants to be known as this thing. I'm going to push out that idea and then it's going to manifest. That's what PR is all about, right? You put it out there, you put the ideas out there, you put the concepts out there, and suddenly it becomes true. And that company becomes what it says it is, if it can back up the goods with authenticity, right? Like it has to actually be doing that thing, but you can kind of make it seem bigger than it is before it's that big to make it that big. And that's kind of the magic of PR.
Thank you for everybody joining in on our trip down memory lane for April Margulies' This Is Your Life.
Well, thank you guys for all these years for, who would have thought 20 years ago I'd be on your podcast? Sarah.
Because there was no such thing.
So weird.
I know. How could we have even predicted a podcast, right?
That would be magic.
Yeah, that would have been magic.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks everyone.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys. Okay.
Thank you.
Talk to you guys soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, I can safely say that trust relations wouldn't be where it is today without the contributions of our dream team. So now we're turning the mic over to our team of trust builders to share a few thoughts with everyone. Hopefully this will be our one and only episode where the stories aren't horror worthy.
Happy 2 years, trust relations. You've come a long way in your 2 short years. So many successes, so many transformations and learnings, so many happy clients. I've known April for 15 years, and we share Midwestern roots, a strong work ethic, and a caustic sense of humor. We're former reporters, so we're skeptics by nature. We ask questions, we doubt, we swear, and then we put our heads down and go to work. So congrats, April. It is a pleasure to work with you and the team of experts you have compiled. I am so excited to see where we go for the next chapter. It's an honor to be along for the ride. Mwah!
So aside from the fact that my first conversation with April involved goats, which would have sold me in and of itself, that first phone call that I had just interacting with trust for the first time was the first time in my career that anybody had ever asked me, so what do you want to do? But it was just like this really wonderful kind of empowering and validating question to be asked as a young professional. And it kind of set this tone in that I've had every opportunity to just like lean into what I wanted to learn and take on and grow in since I've been with Trust. So that first time of being asked, what do you want to do? And then having the opportunity to pursue those things, I just really can't say what a rich and exciting experience that has been for me.
Actually, to piggyback off of what Veronica was saying in the first conversation I had with April, we also talked about goats. The way that you went from New York to just wanting to be out in the middle of nowhere and have a farm and just start a whole new business from the ground up was very inspiring. And I think what you've done so far in the 2 years, it's just amazing to see. I know it's not easy, and I know it's been, long nights for you all the time, with remote work being a thing for everyone now, but also in my position specifically, it's been awesome to have something that I can do while also being a full-time mom, and being able to stay relevant in the industry has been, such a huge blessing for me. So I really appreciate that too.
I can jump in. So for me, Trust has been probably one of the most joyful teams to be a part of. For the last few months, I've been going through some pretty serious medical issues, and I'm just really thankful for April and everyone else on the team that's been helpful with flexibility and allowing me to come back and kind of build through those and push through those as I need to still do what I love as a PR professional.
I'll go. I worked at an agency before, and it was just an increasingly toxic atmosphere. And when I talked to April for the first time, it was like a breath of fresh air. And then since then, I mean, it's just been great. Like, I have not had a bad interaction with anybody on this entire team. It's just been wonderful the entire time. So I'm very thankful for it.
I met April probably almost 2 years ago. And although she didn't have anything for me at the time, the thing that stood out to me the most was not only that we sort of talked just like normal human beings, but that she remembered me and she kept coming back to me until finally something made sense. And over all of this time, got to know me and, you know, the other things that I do and that I'm interested in. And now we do the PR Wind Down podcast together. So her ability to remember people, or however she keeps track and keep up with people, I have never seen that in my entire career. That is pretty impressive. And then giving me a forum to like talk about crazy stuff every week, you know, is basically my dream come true.
I guess I can just add something quickly because I found April. The title was, have you worked for like a toxic PR agency? Did you have like a bad experience? This is nothing like it. And I was like, wow, it's almost like she was at the last place I worked. And what I really loved was how she said, you know, everyone's different and you shouldn't just like put people on random accounts just because like you need people there. I really liked that April has a great ability to like read people and figure out, okay, who works well together? What account can we like put them on? And so I think it's great culture, which I think it's very rare.
I'll piggyback off that. I've only been here 2 weeks, but it's the first firm like this that I've worked with that really isn't saying, well, where can we cut down on hours? Where can we get a bigger margin? That's not even the question. It's how do we take care of our people so we can have better results and everyone's happy. And it's really fun to be part of this team. And even though it's only been 2 weeks, but I just wanted to say that it's pretty awesome.
I'm going to hop in. So someone mentioned that April has a very good ability to read what someone is very good at without actually having them outright say it. I guess that applies to me and my love of weird protocols and procedures. There were things about PR that I loved and being on account teams and things of that nature, but where my passions weren't exactly there. And so I just wanted to thank her for letting me be my boring self in the way that I want to be. Thanks.
Probably one of my favorite things at Trust is reasonable expectations. I feel like I've worked at a lot of agencies that expect sort of these outrageous results and sort of shame you when you don't achieve them despite all of your best efforts. And I appreciate so much that April never shames me if I feel like I was unable to produce the exact thing the client wanted. And I actually think that because of that, I work 65,000 times harder for her to get those results because she's so nice about it. If I fail, that always makes me feel really good and just makes me try even harder.
Congrats on 2 years. I'm so excited for your milestone and the agency's a great place to work at. Just thank you so much for this opportunity and, really glad to be part of this journey with you. Here's to many, many more years. Congratulations.
Hi, April. Happy 2 years. I honestly can't remember the first time that I spoke with you, but I know you were one of these people that I immediately just had a good vibe about. We had a really good conversation. At the time, you were still kind of in research mode, weren't really sure where you're going to take Trust, but it definitely made an impression. And then when we did connect again, you had a place for me. It's been great ever since. As a working mom, I've been really impressed that you've been able to give so many of us opportunities like this to do real work and real quality work during the pandemic, just kind of seeing everybody thrive and able to come together, even though a lot of us have never actually met in person. It's just been great. And congratulations. And I can't wait to see what happens in the next 2 years.
You guys are going to make me cry. I'm like, I can't hold it together. My makeup has to last for the rest of the day. Thank you guys so much. This is it's really meant a lot to me. I do love it. And I love you guys. And I really want for everybody to succeed and have a safe place to land and a fun place to work and great clients. And so that's our goal for sure.
Cool, that was fun. Thank you so much for tuning in for our anniversary edition of the PR Wind Down podcast and for joining us as we've grown as a show and as an agency.
As always, remember to submit your own PR horror stories and questions at the contact email below in the episode notes. We will be back to our regularly scheduled programming next week.
We can't wait to wind down with you again next week.